Hey, generator girl, try not to get electrocuted today. We need electricity to run.
Don't worry, Sergeant. If anything happens to me, at least you'll have a...
They mocked the woman fixing the generator until the general saw the tattoo on her spine. Sarah Chen endured daily mockery from soldiers who saw her as just another civilian contractor fixing generators at Forward Base Alpha. When her jumpsuit tore while repairing critical equipment, it revealed a distinctive military tattoo on her spine, the symbol of Phoenix Squad, an elite unit believed wiped out in a classified mission 13 years ago. And suddenly, everyone realized the quiet technician was a ghost who shouldn't exist. The generator hummed to life under Sarah Chen's expert touch, its steady rhythm providing power to the communications center that kept Forward Base Alpha connected to the outside world. At 42, she moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd spent decades making machines work in impossible conditions, her grease-stained jumpsuit and tool belt marking her as just another civilian contractor in a war zone. "Hey, generator girl," called out Sergeant Mike Rodriguez as he passed the maintenance shed, his voice carrying the casual dismissal that had become familiar to Sarah over the past 6 months. "Try not to electrocute yourself today. We need the power working." His squad mates laughed at the comment, their young faces showing the kind of arrogance that came from thinking they understood how the world worked. To them, Sarah was just another contractor, someone who'd never worn the uniform, never faced enemy fire, never earned the right to be treated as an equal. "Roger that, Sergeant," Sarah replied quietly, not looking up from her work. She'd learned long ago that the best way to handle disrespect was to let her work speak for itself. What the soldiers didn't know, what no one on the base knew, was that Sarah Chen wasn't just a contractor. Hidden beneath her civilian clothes and quiet demeanor was a past that officially didn't exist, a service record that had been erased so completely that even she sometimes wondered if it had been real. The tattoo on her spine told a different story. Inked in precise military script between her shoulder blades was the symbol of Phoenix Squad, a stylized bird rising from flames surrounded by the names of teammates who died in missions that never appeared in any official record. The tattoo was both memorial and identification, marking her as a member of an elite unit that had been declared killed in action 13 years ago. "Keep your head down, do your job, stay invisible," Sarah reminded herself as she tightened a connection that would keep the base's power grid stable for another few months. It was the same mantra she'd followed since arriving at Forward Base Alpha, the same survival strategy that had kept her alive and undetected for over a decade. But as Sarah worked in the sweltering heat of the Afghan morning, adjusting her jumpsuit to stay cool while maintaining the generator that kept the base operational, she had no idea that a simple wardrobe malfunction was about to expose the secret she'd spent 13 years protecting. The ghost of Phoenix Squad was about to become very real, and her carefully constructed new life was about to collide with a past that powerful people had tried very hard to erase. The base's main generator chose the worst possible moment to fail during a video conference between Colonel Martinez and Pentagon officials discussing troop movements in the region. Sarah was called to the communications center with the urgency that came when important people were inconvenienced by mechanical failures. "Chen, get in here," shouted Master Sergeant Williams, the base's senior NCO, who'd grown to respect Sarah's technical abilities, even if he didn't particularly like her civilian status. The brass is losing their minds over this power failure. Sarah grabbed her toolkit and hurried to the communications center, where she found a room full of frustrated officers staring at dead screens. The backup power was running, but it wasn't sufficient to maintain the sophisticated equipment needed for secure communications with Washington. How long to fix it? Colonel Martinez asked, his voice tight with the stress of keeping Pentagon officials waiting. "Give me 20 minutes, Sarah replied, already moving toward the electrical panel that controlled the building's power distribution. "The main generator is fine, but there's a fault in the transfer switch." As Sarah worked, she could feel the eyes of a dozen soldiers watching her every move. The transfer switch was located in a cramped space behind the electrical panel, requiring her to squeeze into a position that put significant strain on her jumpsuit. "Come on," she thought, reaching for a connection that was just out of easy reach. "Just need to bypass this relay and—" The sound of tearing fabric was audible throughout the room as Sarah's jumpsuit split along the back seam, the stress of her position finally overwhelming the worn material. She felt cool air hit her spine as the tear exposed the skin between her shoulder blades. "Jesus," whispered Corporal Davis, a young soldier who'd been watching Sarah work. "Look at her back." Sarah felt her blood run cold as she realized what had happened. The tear in her jumpsuit had exposed the Phoenix Squad tattoo, the one piece of evidence that could connect her to a past that officially didn't exist. "Is that a military tattoo?" Sergeant Rodriguez asked, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "I thought you were just a contractor." Sarah quickly pulled her jumpsuit closed and finished the repair, the power humming back to life as she restored the connection. But she could feel the weight of a dozen pairs of eyes studying her, processing what they'd seen, beginning to ask questions she couldn't answer. "Power's back up," she announced, gathering her tools with hands that remained steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Should be stable now." "Wait a minute," said Lieutenant Foster, a young officer who'd been studying military history at West Point before his deployment. "That tattoo, Phoenix Squad. I've heard that name before." Sarah felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble as Foster's words hung in the air. Phoenix Squad was supposed to be a legend, a ghost story told in hushed tones by intelligence officers who'd heard rumors of operations that never officially happened. "I think you're mistaken," Sarah said quietly, but her voice lacked conviction. "Phoenix Squad," Foster continued, his eyes widening as memory clicked into place. "Elite Unit Classified Operations declared KIA in Afghanistan 13 years ago. But that's impossible. They're all supposed to be dead." The room fell silent as the implications of Foster's words sank in. Sarah looked around at the faces surrounding her, seeing confusion, suspicion, and growing realization that the quiet contractor they'd been dismissing might be something else entirely. "Ma'am," Sergeant Rodriguez said, his voice now carrying a note of respect that hadn't been there before, "who are you, really?" Sarah met his gaze with the calm authority of someone who'd faced far worse situations than a blown cover. "I'm exactly who I've always said I am. Sarah Chen, electrical contractor, here to keep your power running." But as she walked out of the communications center, Sarah knew that her days of anonymity were over. The ghost of Phoenix Squad had been exposed, and there was no going back to the quiet life she'd built in the shadows. Word of Sarah's tattoo had spread through Forward Base Alpha like wildfire transforming the quiet contractor into the subject of intense speculation and whispered conversations. Soldiers who dismissed her for months were now studying her every move, looking for signs of the elite operator they suspected she might be. Colonel Martinez had spent the night reviewing classified files, searching for any information about Phoenix Squad that might explain how one of its supposedly dead members was now fixing generators on his base. What he found in the restricted databases made his blood run cold. Sergeant Major Martinez called to his senior NCO, "I need you to quietly gather everything we have on our contractor Sarah Chen. Employment records, background checks, security clearances, everything. Sir, is there a problem with Chen? She's been one of our most reliable contractors." "That's exactly the problem," Martinez replied grimly. "Reliable contractors don't have tattoos from units that were wiped out over a decade ago." As Martinez dug deeper into Sarah's background, he discovered a paper trail that was almost two perfect employment records that went back exactly the right amount of time, references from companies that existed but had no real history. A background that looked legitimate until you examined it closely enough to see the careful construction. The breakthrough came when Martinez was reviewing after-action reports from his own deployment 13 years earlier. He'd been a captain, then leading a convoy through hostile territory when his vehicle had hit an IED and rolled into a ditch. The official report credited his survival to effective extraction by friendly forces. But Martinez remembered the details that hadn't made it into the paperwork. A figure in combat gear had crawled through enemy fire to reach his overturned vehicle, cutting him free from his harness and dragging him to safety while bullets cracked overhead. The face had been obscured by night vision goggles and tactical gear, but Martinez remembered the voice, calm, professional, reassuring. "Stay with me, Captain. We're getting you out of here." The same voice that had been quietly fixing his generators for 6 months. Martinez pulled up the classified file on Phoenix Squad, studying the redacted personnel records and mission summaries. Most of the information was blacked out, but one detail caught his attention. The unit's final mission had taken place in the same sector where his convoy had been ambushed. She was there, Martinez realized. "She's the one who saved my life." Martinez found Sarah in her usual spot, working on the backup generator that kept the base's critical systems running during power outages. She looked up as he approached, her expression calm despite the tension that had been building on the base for 3 days. "Colonel," she said, setting down her wrench, "how can I help you?" "I think you know why I'm here," Martinez replied, studying her face for any sign of recognition. "Phoenix Squad Operation Nightfall 13 years ago." Sarah's expression didn't change, but Martinez caught the slight tightening around her eyes that confirmed his suspicions. "I'm not sure what you're referring to, sir." "Captain Martinez, 3rd Infantry Division convoy ambush in Sector 7. Martinez continued. "Someone pulled me out of a burning vehicle while taking fire from 3 directions. Someone who told me everything was going to be okay while dragging me to safety." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her hand still steady on her tools despite the magnitude of what was being discussed. "A lot of people were involved in that extraction, Colonel. But only one of them had a voice I'd recognize 13 years later," Martinez said. "Only one of them is currently fixing generators on my base under an assumed identity." Sarah set down her tools and looked directly at Martinez. her expression shifting from contractor to soldier in a way that was unmistakable. "Phoenix Squad was declared KIA," she said quietly. "All 12 members. That's the official record." "But you survived." "4 of us survived. We were scattered, given new identities, told to disappear and never contact each other. The mission we were on, it involved things that powerful people wanted to stay buried." Martinez felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "What kind of things?" "The kind that get entire units erased from existence," Sarah replied. "The kind that turn decorated soldiers into ghosts who spend the rest of their lives hiding in plain sight." In the privacy of Martinez's office, with the door locked and the windows covered, Sarah told him the truth about Phoenix Squad and the mission that had supposedly killed them all. "We were sent to extract a high-value target from a compound in Taliban territory," she began. "Intelligence said he was a bomb maker, someone who'd been targeting American forces. But he wasn't. He was a CIA asset who discovered that American weapons were being sold to the Taliban through a network of corrupt contractors and military officials. He was going to expose the whole operation." Martinez felt his stomach turn as the implications sank in, and Phoenix Squad was sent to silence him. "We were told it was an extraction. We didn't learn the truth until we were already on the ground. When we realized what we were really being asked to do, you refused. Our team leader, Captain Williams, made the call. We were going to bring the asset back alive and let him tell his story. But someone in our chain of command had other plans. The IED that supposedly killed you was meant to eliminate the only witnesses to a conspiracy that went all the way to the Pentagon. 4 of us survived because we were providing overwatch from a distance. We saw our teammates die, saw the evidence destroyed, and knew that we'd be next if anyone discovered we were alive." As Sarah finished her story, Martinez understood that he was looking at a woman who had sacrificed everything, her identity, her career, her life, to protect a truth that powerful people would kill to keep buried. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because 13 years ago, you trusted me to save your life," Sarah replied. "And now I'm trusting you to keep mine." Sarah was awakened by the sound of her door being kicked in, followed by the distinctive click of weapons being readied. 3 figures in tactical gear stood silhouetted in her doorway, their faces obscured by night vision goggles and balaclavas. "Sarah Chen," the lead figure said, his voice carrying the flat authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Or should I say, Sergeant First Class Sarah Chen, Phoenix Squad." Sarah remained motionless on her bunk, her mind automatically calculating distances, weapons, and escape routes. The men were professionals. Their positioning, their gear, their movements all spoke of extensive training and experience. "I think you have me confused with someone else," Sarah said calmly, but her hand was already moving toward the knife she kept hidden beneath her pillow. "Cut the act," the leader replied. "We know who you are, we know what you've been doing, and we know that you've been sharing classified information with Colonel Martinez." Sarah felt her blood run cold as she realized that her conversation with Martinez had been monitored. The conspiracy that had tried to erase Phoenix Squad 13 years ago was still active, still protecting itself by eliminating threats. "What do you want?" she asked. "The same thing we wanted 13 years ago," the leader said. "Your silence, permanently this time." 32 hours. The escape. The attack came without warning as the 3 men moved to secure Sarah's quarters. But they'd made a critical mistake. They'd assumed that 13 years of hiding had made her soft, that the quiet contractor was no longer the elite operator who'd once been considered one of the military's most dangerous soldiers. Sarah's knife found the first attacker's throat before he could react, her movement so fast and precise that his teammates barely had time to register what had happened. She rolled off her bunk as automatic weapons fire shredded the space where she'd been lying, using the darkness and her intimate knowledge of the base layout to her advantage. Phoenix Squad training, she thought, as she moved through the shadows with lethal efficiency. Some things you never forget. The second attacker went down to a thrown wrench that caught him in the temple with enough force to drop him instantly. The third managed to get off a burst of gunfire that brought half the base running, but Sarah was already gone, vanishing into the maze of equipment and structures that made up Forward Base Alpha. L400 hours. The hunt, the base erupted into chaos as soldiers responded to the sound of gunfire, not knowing whether they were under attack or dealing with an internal threat. Sarah used the confusion to her advantage, moving through areas she'd mapped during 6 months of maintenance work. Colonel Martinez found her in the communications center where she was using her access codes to send encrypted messages to locations around the world. "Sarah, what the hell is going on?" Martinez demanded. "My guards are dead. There are armed men on my base, and half my soldiers think we're under attack." "We are under attack," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "The same people who tried to kill Phoenix Squad 13 years ago just tried to finish the job." "Who are they?" "Private military contractors working for the same network we were supposed to help cover up. They've been monitoring the base, waiting for me to expose myself." Martinez watched as Sarah's messages went out to addresses he didn't recognize. "What are you doing?" "Calling in backup," Sarah said. "The other Phoenix Squad survivors. If they're coming for me, they're probably going after the others too." 4:30 hours. The revelation. As dawn broke over Forward Base Alpha, Sarah revealed the true scope of the conspiracy that had been hunting Phoenix Squad for over a decade. The network of corrupt officials and contractors hadn't just tried to eliminate witnesses to their crimes, they'd been actively hunting the survivors, using government resources to track down and silence anyone who could expose their operations. "How many people are we talking about?" Martinez asked. "Dozens of officials, hundreds of contractors, billions of dollars in illegal weapon sales," Sarah replied. "Phoenix Squad stumbled onto the largest military corruption scandal in American history, and they've been killing people to keep it quiet ever since. And now they know you're here." "Now they know we're all still alive," Sarah corrected. "The messages I sent will activate protocols we established years ago. If one of us is compromised, the others go public with everything we've collected." Martinez stared at the woman who'd been quietly fixing his generators for 6 months, understanding that he was looking at someone who'd been fighting a shadow war for 13 years. "What happens now?" he asked. Sarah smiled, and it was the expression of a warrior who'd finally found her battlefield. "Now, we finish what Phoenix Squad started, and this time we're not going to let them bury the truth." The sound of helicopters approaching Forward Base Alpha brought every soldier to alert status. But Colonel Martinez knew these weren't enemy aircraft. Sarah had been monitoring military frequencies all night, coordinating the arrival of people who officially didn't exist. 3 Black Hawks touched down on the base's landing pad, disgorging passengers who moved with the fluid precision of elite operators. To the watching soldiers, they looked like a mix of contractors, federal agents, and military personnel, but Sarah recognized them immediately, the surviving members of Phoenix Squad and the allies they'd gathered over 13 years of hiding. Sergeant Chen said a woman in civilian clothes who approached with the bearing of someone accustomed to command, "It's good to see you again." "Captain Williams," Sarah replied, using the rank her former team leader had held before Phoenix Squad was officially erased. "I wasn't sure you'd gotten my message. We've been monitoring communications for years, waiting for this day," Williams said. "When your activation signal went out, we knew it was time to come out of the shadows." Martinez watched the reunion with growing amazement as he realized he was looking at ghosts, soldiers who'd been declared dead, but had spent over a decade gathering evidence against the conspiracy that had tried to eliminate them. In the base's secure conference room, the Phoenix Squad survivors laid out 13 years of meticulous investigation. They'd been scattered across the country working in civilian jobs while secretly documenting the network of corruption that had tried to erase them. "We have financial records showing weapon sales to terrorist organizations," explained Sergeant Torres, who'd been working as an accountant in Denver while tracking money laundering operations. "Bank transfers, shipping manifests, communication intercepts, everything needed to prove the conspiracy. We also have testimony from other military units that were silenced or eliminated," added Corporal Jackson, who'd been working as a private investigator in Seattle. Phoenix Squad wasn't the only unit that discovered inconvenient truths. Captain Williams activated a laptop that displayed a network diagram showing connections between defense contractors, Pentagon officials, and foreign arms dealers. "This is what we died for," she said. "A conspiracy that's been selling American weapons to our enemies for over 2 decades." Martinez studied the evidence with growing horror. How many people are involved? At least 40 Pentagon officials, 6 major defense contractors, and hundreds of middlemen. Williams replied, "They've been creating conflicts to justify weapon sales, then selling those same weapons to both sides of the conflicts they created." As the scope of the conspiracy became clear, Martinez faced a decision that would define his career and possibly his life. The evidence Phoenix Squad had gathered was enough to bring down some of the most powerful people in the military-industrial complex, but exposing it would also put everyone involved at risk. "Colonel," Williams said, "we need your help to get this evidence to people who can act on it. We've been ghosts for 13 years. We don't officially exist, so our testimony alone won't be enough." "What are you asking me to do?" "Use your position to contact congressional oversight committees, military investigators, journalists who can't be bought," Sarah said. "Give this evidence the official credibility it needs to be taken seriously." Martinez looked around the room at the faces of soldiers who'd sacrificed everything to protect a truth that powerful people would kill to suppress. "What about your safety? If this goes public, they'll come after all of you." "They're already coming after us," Williams replied. "Last night's attack proves that. Our only chance of survival is to expose everything and make ourselves too public to eliminate quietly." As Phoenix Squad prepared to go public with their evidence, Sarah made a personal decision that surprised everyone in the room. Instead of maintaining her cover as a civilian contractor, she requested permission to resume her military identity. "I want to testify in uniform," she told Martinez, "as Sergeant First Class Sarah Chen, United States Army Phoenix Squad. These people tried to erase us, but we're still here and we're still soldiers." Martinez understood the significance of what Sarah was asking. Officially acknowledging her military status would validate everything Phoenix Squad had been fighting for, but it would also make him complicit in their war against the conspiracy. "Sergeant Chen," he said formally, "consider yourself reactivated to active duty status. Phoenix Squad is officially back on the roster." Using the base's communication equipment, Phoenix Squad held a press conference that was simultaneously broadcast to news outlets, congressional offices, and military commands around the world. For the first time in 13 years, the supposedly dead soldiers spoke publicly about what they'd witnessed and what they'd been fighting to expose. "My name is Captain Lisa Williams, United States Army Phoenix Squad," Williams began, her voice carrying clearly through the satellite link. 13 years ago, my unit was declared killed in action to cover up a conspiracy involving the illegal sale of American weapons to terrorist organizations. The reaction was immediate and explosive. News networks interrupted regular programming, congressional phones began ringing off the hook, and Pentagon officials found themselves facing questions they'd hoped would never be asked. Sarah stepped forward to add her testimony. "I am Sergeant First Class Sarah Chen, and for the past 6 months, I've been hiding in plain sight as a contractor on Forward Base Alpha. We've spent 13 years gathering evidence of crimes that reach the highest levels of our government and military." As news of Phoenix Squad's survival and allegations spread around the world, Colonel Martinez made arrangements to protect his base and the soldiers who'd chosen to stand with the truth. Military police units loyal to the investigation were flown in, while congressional investigators and federal prosecutors began making plans to take custody of the evidence. "This is going to get ugly," Martinez warned Sarah as they watched news coverage of the story breaking worldwide. "It's been ugly for 13 years, Sarah replied. "The difference is that now everyone can see it." As Phoenix Squad prepared for the legal and political battle ahead, Sarah looked around Forward Base Alpha, the place where her carefully constructed cover had been blown by a torn jumpsuit and a tattoo she'd never been able to remove. Sometimes, she thought the truth finds a way to surface, no matter how deep you try to bury it. The ghosts of Phoenix Squad were about to become very real, and their war for justice was finally going public. The memorial service for the original Phoenix Squad took place on a crisp autumn morning, with full military honors for soldiers who'd finally been acknowledged after 13 years of official non-existence. Sarah Chen stood at attention in her dress blue uniform, the ribbons on her chest telling the story of a career that had been erased and then restored. Today, we honor 12 soldiers who gave their lives in service to truth, said General Patricia Hayes, the new Secretary of Defense who'd been appointed to clean up the corruption exposed by Phoenix Squad's revelations. Their sacrifice exposed a conspiracy that threatened the very foundations of our military. The investigation triggered by Phoenix Squad's evidence had resulted in the largest military corruption scandal in American history. 47 officials had been arrested, including 3 generals and a Deputy Secretary of Defense. 6 major defense contractors had been dissolved, their assets seized to compensate victims of the illegal weapon sales. Sarah looked out at the crowd gathered for the ceremony, Congressional leaders, military officials, journalists, and families of soldiers who died from weapons that American contractors had sold to their enemies. The truth that Phoenix Squad had died trying to expose was finally public, and the system was beginning to heal. Sergeant Chen said Colonel Martinez, who'd been promoted to general for his role in protecting Phoenix Squad and facilitating their testimony, "I wanted to thank you again for trusting me with the truth." "Thank you for believing it, sir," Sarah replied, "and for giving us the platform to tell our story." After the ceremony, Sarah returned to her new assignment at the Pentagon, where she worked as a special advisor on military contractor oversight. The quiet technician who'd fixed generators in Afghanistan was now helping to rebuild the systems that had failed so catastrophically. Her workstation bore a small nameplate that read, "Sergeant First Class Sarah Chen, Phoenix Squad," a reminder that some truths were worth any sacrifice to protect. On her desk sat a photo of her original team, 12 soldiers who died as heroes, but had been remembered as casualties, until their surviving teammates fought to restore their honor. As Sarah reviewed reports on contractor activities around the world, she carried with her the knowledge that Phoenix Squad's mission was finally complete. They'd exposed the conspiracy protected future soldiers from the corruption that had killed their teammates and proven that even the most powerful people couldn't bury the truth forever. The ghost of Phoenix Squad had become a guardian of integrity, ensuring that their sacrifice would never be forgotten and their mission would never need to be repeated.